G'day, Australia. Hello, world. And welcome to our discussion. And thank you again, Vanese, making available the opportunity, creating an environment to celebrate in this brand new news of and Australia's biggest rediscovery. And it's a great pleasure to be here today. Yeah, thank you, Vanese.
My pleasure, darling. So so Colin, first of all, everybody, Colin Hayter, I've known for how long now? How long have I known you, darling? Quite a while.
Quite a while, yeah. Coming through an incidental, I rang the wrong phone number.
This is the thing, isn't it amazing? Talk about the way we met. The way we met was really crazy, Colin, right?
It was, yeah. If I recall the day, yourself and Dad were driving in a convertible and could barely make out the phone call coming down the line.
That's right.
So I rang to ask a follow-up of an Egyptian-related question related to text, and somehow rang your number and caught you both in a speeding car. I've got you back on the film again.
Yes.
And so of course, the question must have been an interesting one because it caught your interest, and we've been good friends ever since.
Yeah, but you didn't even realize I was Magical Egypt, and so Colin called me with this.
Funny.
Have some questions about ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and it was like the perfect person to misdial and actually reach us. And since then, Colin has done a lot of incredible work on the glyphs in New South Wales. And the reason that we're coming to you today is because Colin not only has made one new discovery, but two incredible new discoveries. And so what I'm going to do, since Colin's video is not working so well right now, I am going to play the little movie that Colin has made about this discovery so that you can see what he's talking about as he is talking about it. Is that good with you, Colin, darling?
Yes, all the way.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me get that going. And so why don't you tell us whereabouts this discovery is, sweetie?
Okay, yeah. Our learning journey there's taking us to a small country town called Bourke, just over the Victorian border. Other areas surrounding it, to give people an idea, would be Bendigo and Shepparton, around those places. And it's there our learning journey begins. And would you believe, right smack in the middle of town, and we're there, lay right in front of everybody's eyes, lay once again the greatest in square measure geoglyph on the planet.
Now, Colin, can you see the video, sweetie? Is it playing?
I can, yeah, I see that now playing out. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, playing out in silence.
Yes, just because I want you to talk about it. So.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. Well, taking us to site. Firstly, today it's a hunting ground, and so it's a reserve for just that purpose. One can go there and shoot kangaroos, wallabies, whatever they like, and that's really what the land is seen as its total value today. Nothing other than just a killing ground, forming also part of the natural water mitigation there. What we're seeing here is that we're talking about the National Rail Authority that's planning the fast train speed line going through from Melbourne to Brisbane in the far north. So part of our struggle is going before that rail line, where so far the route is proposed, it's not planned, but going in that proposed route and standing there along the way, any chance of cultural sites of significance that need to be addressed before things become planned. And of course, what happens then, all too often, it's too late to alter the plan, and we have a massive argument on our hands, riots in the streets, and so on. So now going before this railroad proposal, looking into the land, using those skills that we own as researchers for country and culture, there, in doing that job, we were able to make a greatest discovery. So here in these lands exist two other geoglyphs, well known, recently attracted and earned World Heritage protection. And so this particular tribe, they're known for making these geoglyphs. And what
So,
was
sweetie, I'm
found
just going
then
to
by
interrupt
going,
you for a second. So, this
yeah,
wordy Yuang is one of their geoglyphs that we're seeing on screen right now.
yeah,
And
that's right.
the next one of their famous geoglyphs is this Kuyang.
You are, yep,
All right.
yep.
So before we go on, why don't you tell people what a geoglyph is, just in case they're not aware of what a geoglyph is?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, well, geoglyph is, well, call it a layout upon the ground that can be viewed from some height, making an impression of metaphor value in the way of an animal or a tool or whatever it might be, often made from stones, the layout of stones. And so other examples of a geoglyph might be Nazca. Many of those longer than what we see here in now the mighty turtle. However, only a metre or so apart, compared to the turtle at 3/4 kilometre.
So basically,
So
it's
a
kind of a
geoglyph,
geometric diagram, or it could be a word, or it could be a picture of an animal or something like that. Or it could be just a circle. Like it could be any kinds of thing, but it's some kind of form that is made on the ground, and they tend to be of larger size generally, darling.
they often do. And so the two previously around the size of around 70 metres. So impressive size. The average house garden block might be 20 metres across. So if you can imagine yourself and your neighbours either side, would be around that size. Unique on this occasion in this brand new discovery is here we're dealing with a size of 1,230 metres, 1.23 kilometres, and dwarfing the previous 70 metres by many, many times.
So before we go there, sweetie, we've got a bunch of rocks on the screen right now. Is this part of that, or is that this?
Yeah.
This is part of the new discovery with these rocks here.
Yeah, these are the two previous discoveries.
Okay.
Already by this time attained a World Heritage listing today. Protection, I should say.
Got it. So when we're moving on to the new one then, right? So these rocks belong to the previous discoveries. Okay. So, oh yeah, here we go. And this is the area. Dalesford's a lovely area. I've actually spent a lot of time there. All right. So we're coming up to the new one, the big new discovery, which you've already mentioned is a turtle. Now, first of all, this is the lake that it's by. So it's actually by Lake Lindigore. Is that correct, darling?
Correct, yeah, Lake Lindigore, yeah. So the scene on the ground is that this is part of the water management for the district, in the way that in times of flood or heavy rain, the scene you see before you now holds a bowl of water, and which would dry out and eventually return back to dry again. But so it's one of a good many. We might call them ponds for the moment, even though it's dry today. But a great many ponds just like it. They're called bogs even. And so we're looking at a lake with no water. But at times it does have water. And so what's happened here in this instance is that in the time when the geoglyph was made, in that season there was no water there. But knowing that there would be later, at a time, that the turtle fit in very nicely, of course, the freshwater turtle, in the way that the turtles inhabit in that particular area. So not unusual that they would pick a turtle, of all things. So once again, the area, its water comes and goes. But what changed for it dramatically was as colonisation arrived in the area, and it began around 1840 to 1847. So eventually, then it became an actual town, and so then public works were introduced, which drastically changed the flow of the waters in the land. So now the lake became more sodden, more wet, deeper water for longer periods, and that greatly affected the tree growth there on the site, where the natural trees there, the native trees, they're used to being underwater for a time and then drying out again. But here now they were submerged for some years, causing the trees to die.
Okay.
The salinity in the water obvious around the trunks today. So while we arrive on site, one of the first things we notice is we can see that the salinity white mark around the tree stump, so that was once a high tide mark, but of course was deadly. You know, it's poisonous to the trees and killed them. And so that was the beginning of the site's demise. Was once again the trees died and then eventually fell over.
So, Colin, let me just stop you there for a second. So, first of all, I have up on screen now the actual picture of the zoomed in, or one of the pictures that we have of the hydroglyph. So, the first question is, and it's very subtle, guys, like we'll put on some graphics in a minute. So, is this literally next to the lake? It's actually like that you have the lake and then this is positioned next to the lake, or is it in the lake bed itself, darling, just so I'm clear?
Yeah, we're within it. Yeah, that's what we're looking at in front of our eyes there.
Okay, so this is inside the lake bed. Okay. Okay. And this is why the trees here, these particular trees are used to being in water for a certain amount of time, but not as long as they were when the water changed. Now, guys, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a big kind of line diagonal across the screen, and you'll see there that the very beginning of the turtle head is here. And if you follow that back, you'll see the big round circle about halfway through the screen is the beginning of the shell. So, I mean, there's a few different shots that we'll show, Colin, but I mean, it's undeniable that it's a turtle, right?
It is, yeah. So the species, the depiction is so detailed, we can tell both its species and its sex in the way that instantly it becomes recognizable as a species type called a eastern long-necked turtle, which is natural to the east coast of Australia here and plentiful. But then when we get to its tail, there it gets really fascinating, you know, because there we see the difference between a male and a female. So a male turtle of this same type, a mature age male turtle, right there where his shell meets the tail, there he has a V shape that goes back into his shell. And it's to do with things like allows the current of water to spread his sperm further when it comes mating periods and things like that, you know. And,
isn't that interesting?
For the female, she merely has a tiny dent in her shell that just returns. And the difference in their tail is that the female is a short and stubby tail compared to the male's longer tail, which carries his reproductive organs. You know? So he's got to reach out a little bit for those. And the pictogram, and that's what it's called, by the way. This is a pictogram. That's a story being. And it's pictogram. Once again, it's so detailed, even over that vast distance of 1.3 kilometers, that we could even tell the species as well as its sex.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Standing on site, we really had to check out how was that even possible? That they could see that far in that detail. And but what was remarkable about this find, that moved all of us, it really did, was when we noticed in the district that the tribe was had employed the use of making a geoglyph before, and so when we looked at those ones, we could see that our modern science today, had attested those to being around 1500 BC. So they're around 3,500 years old. Certainly a considerable age into antiquity, in any society. And but what it told us looking at them was in that time, the tribes there must have had certainly a strong population. Some of those rocks are around 2 tons. But, to move that sort of thing about takes a considerable amount of men. But what we were seeing now in the turtle here in Forth, coming from more recent times, what we could tell there was that their method of employment of effort, was made to be minimal.
Yes.
And in the way that rather than moving 2-ton blocks around, they just simply using sticks and hands, and push the soil to the side, making a small depression.
So I'm just going to stop you there, Colin, for a second. Right. So just to be clear, to create this major shape, they utilized, as far as I think I understand, they planted trees to create the basic form. Is that correct? And then they use these sticks to move the soil in between these trees. So like a kind of like a join the dots kind of painting. Is that what you mean?
Well, kind of, but they couldn't have planted the seeds without drawing the turtle first to know where to put them.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it would seem the manufacturer was just that, that they, again, to scale, amazing scale, to brush those balls aside and plant the seed alongside as they went, or as it was necessary to, because each, by the way, turned out to be what grave. And so I imagine, long after its initial structure, they continued adding residents into it,
Okay, so this is like a funerary hydroglyph.
It's a cemetery.
It's a cemetery.
It's a cemetery, it turned out to be a cemetery. So traditional graves were known there in the area, in this Lakes district, because once again, there's a number of these things, so in the area, it's very famous, the lake they call the Lake of Scars, which is famous for totem trees. So there's those beautiful trees we see that are carved, to a tribe's totem shield marks and so on, or holding the spirit and so on them. So a lot of those were found in the area. So it's already known, to be a culturally significant site, for the sake of this large amount of burials in the area, and found under the trees, But this particular one, right next door, to that particular lake, that's most famous, this one was missed for the sake of it just looked so plain and ordinary. There was nothing from the ground of any value to see. And from the sky, initially, still a lake, covered by water. Of course, there was nothing without some focus to be able to see either. So it completely went straight past everybody's eyes.
Isn't that amazing? And, it's interesting because this year we've actually had a really wet year, and it's amazing that you were able to see it, because we have had drought for so long, darling.
Yeah.
So this is quite stunning.
What happened recently was in the area there was more public work done, and the height of the weir was raised. And so with a bigger population today involved, there's a great need to create dams, and water. And so it's only in these last years now that's why it's dry, even in heavy rain season. And but what they do is part of the land management for the area is once again, that land always has water coming and going. That's a natural process. So the ecology there relies on that. So good planning today, even though they need to save water in those weirs, when they can afford it at times, they will release water so it floods the dam. And what it does is to give that constant ecology there, the sustenance that needs to continue. And the sustenance is needed for life, which is the waterfowl and all the things and the turtles, that would live there today. So in that sense, the water's a good thing when it does come. But it's about to come again. Within the research, after we realised what we were looking at, there's an amazing amount of research goes into it next. But what was discovered was the water mitigation plan for the area. And in that, we were to realise that in these next days, probably started already, the lake's being flooded once more. And again, it's to control the sustenance to the local ecology, the waterfowl and so on, has to be done. And so next time we see it, in any next day now, it might well be water once again. And the plan is that we'll stay that way for the next 1 or 2 years. So you'd think that's tragic, wouldn't you? We've just discovered the largest geoglyph on Earth, and all of a sudden, here it is about to be ripped away from all our eyes.
Catch it while you can.
Here we didn't see it that way. What we've seen was, that the survived all this time, in this busy modern age, this last 50 years, only because it was underwater.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been, there would have been trail bikes, those hunters would be driving their four-wheel drive, and you can imagine. And so all this while, that the water, and mother, of course, exists in the moving water, she protected it, So now, we did something rather selfish, perhaps, in a way that we could have brought news of this, probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we did it, And what we didn't was, again, if we had of, and this will make world news, but if we had of, there would have been by now this weekend already 300 people walking up and down that thing looking at it.
Yes,
And
exactly.
they'd be walking on those very vulnerable tracks now, because they are, they've been, grown over by weeds, and there's rabbits burrowing under them, And so, we selfishly got hats, but deliberately didn't rush in there, even though we were in a hurry, to document things, but we weren't in a hurry to release it. And to give that window of opportunity, getting closer as it was coming to that inundation period there, they're going to flood it now. And so by the time the world really gets to hear about what you and I are talking now, in maybe just a day or two from now, the veil would already have been drawn, and she's protected again.
Colin,
so,
one
yeah,
of the
funny,
things that's been so interesting in talking about these discoveries over the last few days is how many of them have been destroyed in Australia for the most stupid reasons. You were telling me about a guy that had some amazing monument on his land, and he pulled it down because he was scared that he would actually lose the rights to his land if it was shown to be a Indigenous sacred area. And that's the kind of thing that we've heard of, people destroying these things all over Australia.
Yeah. We do, and confessions like that are very rare. They don't. Who does that? That particular fellow, he made his confession, but there would have been another 100 behind him. That would have been equally as deadly and dangerous to artifact remains, and never said a thing. So yeah, how common is it? How much has been destroyed out there? We could never know. Examples like this, it brings to light for us. Just a tiny hint, I guess, what could have been. But that's why we work so hard today,
Yeah.
Such,
well, Colin,
leadership.
Let me ask you a question about this. I'm hearing that this is a living glyph because of the trees around it as as a integral part of the glyph. I'm hearing that it's funerary. I'm hearing that it's a female turtle. And all of this leads me to a feeling like there might be a story here that ties all of these things together. Like, is there mythology that has to do with lives or souls or anything, or journeys or anything that puts all of this together?
Very much so. We could look at the turtle the way, say, a modern Indian today might look at a banana on top of a Hindu temple and see it as a vehicle. You might have heard that. So what happens is that the turtle fits into a place in lore, Lore. But we never say mythology because these things aren't a myth. These guys actually lived this, So fitting into the passed down stories, lore, the turtle goes like this. That when we are first born, it's the turtle that takes us to our station in life, where it is that later there will become who we're going to be, where we're going to live, and so on. So, like for a European, perhaps, it might be the swan, I think it's a pelican or whatever that might carry the baby in its mouth. In Australian business, traditional Australian business, the turtle. So what happens is that the turtle, once again, travelling upon the waters, the current, the river of life, takes us out and delivers us there to our station in life. However, after life and after we're finished with our bones and flesh, those parts are returned back into the earth, a part of the earth. That part of us that lives eternal, that one day returns to the sun. And according to our modern science, that's exactly where we all come from, in our components. So that part of our being that remains eternal returns again on the back of the turtle, and from there rejoins back into the river of life and is taken home, delivered to where the current first flows out from the Great Mother, taking us home. And so And of course, that turtle being a female, in the way that all you females, you're all the same. You're all a part of that great mother, every one of you. And no different for the animals either, you know. So hence it's not a male turtle being there. And so once again, yeah, the turtle being there, it's choice for pictograms. Yeah, it's choice in correct protocols to traditional values and concepts. It's like as it would be to an Indian, a Vamana, it's a vehicle, where you and I might get in a hearse.
Yes.
It's like Pebble Bay, you know. But for them, it was the turtle. The turtle takes you home. So all these buried there, in this terrible, tragic story that has played out there, where so many of them died from disease and
yes. Do you want to go into that a little bit, Colin? Just tell us the story about what actually happened there, because it's a very sad story.
It is, yeah. So it takes understanding the total story that's after all. And so what it is, from the indicators on site, and so the indicators can be the great many of those trees that did survive. So unlike having to do a carbon test on the dead trees, to see when they were born, when they died, all those things, available to us right in front of our eyes, of course, is the ones that did survive, and many did. And so educated observations from there by specialists of trees assure us that the trees appear to be around 180 to 200 years in that margin of their age from when first sprouted from their seeds. And that which delivers us to the year 1840. And so knowing that the seeds were planted in 1840, it turns our view then to what was happening in the district in that year. So what we discovered was, just in the years previously, 1836, just 4 years earlier, what happened was the first white fella shows up there in the district. And so he's a chap called Mitchell, who's very famous in Australian history. He's a surveyor and explorer, you know, looking for the inland sea and so on, out from Victoria. And so anyway, he turns up in the district, 1936. 4 years later, the Jar Jar Wooing noted in Australia's census, the government census of population. And now that they're known of, they're included into it. So the difference was that when Mitchell first came through in 1836, there was the tribe councils themselves at around 2,000, 2,196 or something like this, and the immediate clans. And now what happens is when they're picked up in the government census, just 4 years later, the numbers are just over 200 less. All else had perished in what happened in the first white fella turning up, came with them the smallpox. And soon after, the untreated syphilis, where, for the white fella, he might have been had to go to the doctor in the day, but of course they didn't have that. It was as deadly as smallpox itself. And together, the diseases went rampant. So Mitchell, he returned to the area between 1936 and 1940, and he employed from there 17 of their warriors, their biggest men. And what he was doing was he was searching for the inland sea. So he hired them by payment and to carry his canoes for him. And anyway, they were gone for 4 months. And so in their when they returned, just 4 months later, those warriors coming home discovered for the first time already half of their tribe was dead. And you can imagine it's like, every second person you know doesn't live anymore, and that's what they came home to, just in that 4 months, yeah. So it made a mess of them. So modern archaeology today finds examples of these victims, found that not traditionally buried. And for many, it's been a bit of a mystery, like, why did the Aborigines do that? They're so keen on tradition and so on. But the scene was so bad, there was nobody left to bury the dead. And, it was not a great amount of people anyway. You might have had a lonely old mother, burying the last of her sons, and so she didn't have the ability to do that thing, to strip the flesh and paint the bones and all those wonderful things, because all they could do was take them to the soft earth of the riverbank and bury them there, where they wash out and often found today. And so greatly, this is what those making the turtle up again. So once again, 1836, 2,000 plus. 4 years later, 1840s, only 200 left. And so this is the time that the tree specialists tell us that the seeds were planted. And it went a long way to explaining for us how it was or why it was. The effort or the employment put into it was done using the most basic things, in that they didn't have, the labour force about anymore to lug big stones around or anything like that. And so hence just employing the most simple, basic means. And I've got to say, our traditionals, they excel at that,
Yes.
in any task, to get the best as the most simple thing. And so in that thing they're most famous for, they certainly applied it there, and created that vehicle, to take all that great many all home together, all on the back of the one turtle. Amazing.
Amazing. Colin, now I have up on screen now some lovely ladies.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So they're your partners in crime, are they?
Yeah, very much so. There we're looking at Mandy McKay and a lovely daughter, Kat McKay. And part of our brilliant team. And making these sorts of things possible. It takes a good many people. It takes more than most folks would first realise. And in the way that the team on this occasion were made up of around 8 or to 9 of us. And here what we're seeing is Mandy and Kat. So Mandy has been a student of mine for some years, a very successful student who's been studying reading Egyptian hieroglyphs, specialising in ideogram and logogram text or spiritual text. So that's the stuff we read in pyramids and on coffins and tombs, unlike the ordinary events of the day that's written in the alphabetical text. And so Mandy's been a long time student and as I say, very successful one, doing some great work on the green stela between the paws of the Sphinx. So brand new news coming there. And Kat, her lovely daughter, carrying on her interest and doing that thing that mothers and daughters do best, working together. Both following my work for a long time. So they play a very important part in the team. So it was Mandy and Kat that did the ground observations on this one. And so the reasons for that included not only they were most available being collected, ones that could have got there very quickly, but what was realised in the turtle being a female and this being a very much carrying spiritual constraints and so on was it was preferred to send in only females.
Yes, you mentioned that. That was kind of one thing that people might not understand, and I only learned it when I had been in Australia for a while, is that within the Indigenous communities, there's things called women's business and things that are called men's business, right? And in Australia, if women go to a place that is a men's business place, it's not good juju. And so I'm assuming that this would be considered women's business or a women's business place. Is that correct, Colin?
Well, it's the women that prepare the dead, and of course look out best for the sick and the injured, and nurture the children. So the women play a very big part in that role. Where if a bulldozer was coming to that place, it might be myself who would have said. Where now we need a raging warrior.
Right.
And traditional values and concepts take in a correct protocol of types, and for the land to begin and start to open up, and so it takes honouring a journey, for a journey to do that, for the land to open up, and so we thought this was the best way to do it. Was for this purpose only, we send in just the ladies, and it was ladies talking to a lady.
Yes.
Because as I say, you're all part of her, every one of you. And bringers of sustenance and creators of life you are, that only God can do that sort of thing. When I say God, I mean like a creator God, like the energy of our sun or our living nature. But ladies do that. And and that's the point we raise here often, is ladies in that way. I've discovered a lot of things in my time beneath, more than just two. A great many things that have a massive impact now for our known history. But the greatest discovery I ever made, and it was very fortunate for me, I was young in my time to discover it, was I discovered out there the divine feminine.
Yeah.
And how that works. And understanding how that works, and understanding the divine feminine really helped greatly open up the doors that got us this far, ever in the first place. And but I was most fortunate to learn of the divine feminine, like as I say, very early in my journey. Thank goodness I didn't have to wait 50 years of working hard to find that out.
No, honestly, I know a lot of people might not have even got that far, Colin, so that's quite amazing. I just want to point out that we have a picture right now of the trees growing in the lake itself. Yeah. And so this is what it looks like when it's flooded naturally. Okay. And that's beautiful. That's right.
Yeah. And this is from that lake system there, by the way, from around those areas. And it's a pretty sight, isn't it? But you can see, exactly what's happened there. So in our ground observations, it was, we had to take in, because we didn't know any of this stuff, and we're seeing it for the first time. But we had to take in what happened to the trees where they dropped down, and those sorts of things happen a lot. And I can tell you, traditional Australia would be looking for its villains. On seeing the trees today, they'd be going, look what they done,
Yeah.
And so it was important to apply a bit of forensic criminal science, if you like, And so one of the things the young ladies took in was to measure the height to themselves, of the tree stumps.
Oh.
And what we were looking for, was an average, to give us an idea of how tall was this fellow or fellows, that chopped the trees down. And what we found was, so many were knee height, others were, at waist height, others were at shoulder height. And a height that's very unlikely someone's going to get up there and be swinging a hammer, an axe. So confounding us, but at the same time too, we were seeing no saw marks nor axe marks either, And so as the story of how the waters covered the land, came to us as the story unfolded, then it became obvious this scene here that you see now, in that they drowned and rotted out where they stood. And interesting was that in some of the other lakes, like this one, we could see that for them, their fallen trees were still there today. But interestingly they all point in one direction. So it was actually the wind that flattened them eventually.
Isn't it
once they become so brittle, and so on. So for this one, there's hardly any debris to be found. We found one lying tree trunk, out of all those many trees. And you think, well, did somebody come along and pick them all up? But of course, what happened was, as it does at flood, and the water flows there, at that time, of course, while they could still float, it picked them up and they floated away. And so they all ended up in the lake next door. And so the lake next door is the one that is now a tourist park. So in 1965, the fund began there, and they completely drained that lake into this one. So again, it gets flooded again. And this is why in 1965, in the aerial photos, there's the flooded lake. They pumped the water out of next door into this one. So now they could renovate that lake to become a tourist attraction and bring money to the port.
Oh.
And so in that lake, that's where we see in the photos from the port archive, the local newspapers and so on, truckloads and truckloads of trees being taken away, broken branches and so on, And what it is, it's all the branches and trees from this lake that over the last 100 years, ended up in that lake. And which they rid of in this huge work project that went on there in 1965 and became the wonderful spectacle it is today. If you visit the port, beautiful to behold. A wonderful big skiing lake. But you couldn't have skied in that lake that they're skiing in now, of course, with all this lot in it. And so, interesting that the story unfolded to us was not just its traditional story and its motivation, why it was there, but it was its modern journey, what happened to it, in a way that changing the water management in the land initially affected it and made it be underwater for decades instead of just seasons. And then of course they being inundated again as they refresh this lake next door, and so on. So it was interesting to unfold the timeline of events there from those first seeds being planted in 1940.
So, Colin, do you think now that it's discovered that it will become protected, is there a way to protect it now? Or what happens now? Like something you're returning the knowledge back to the local Indigenous tribe. I know you were talking about that.
Yeah, there's a number of things happen for it. Number one, initially first and as quick as possible when discoveries like these are made, is collating all the information together into some form of presentation, which the movie that we see now that we also part in does.
Yes.
And from there, it's immediately given, and that knowledge is owned by those the tribes from that area. So this is their story. So basically, it's the duty we do, And so it goes to that. But what happens next is, especially here at all places, once again, 2 geoglyphs from this tribe have, that's those branches I was telling you about, by the way, in the lake next door, 1965. Oh, I forgot what I was now. I interrupted myself, didn't I?
Sorry. We were just talking about what happens now.
Oh, of course, yes. Very important. So the news being returned. So once again, in that same land, 2 of those other previous known geoglyphs have already gone through that process of heritage protection, World Heritage Protection. And so what happens now is this one follows on. But what happens for it is it will enjoy a much smoother journey. Where it took over 10 years, nearly 20 years to get those ones heritage protected, with those already in place, this one it's expected would once again enjoy a much more smooth journey and a quicker journey as an extension to those already in place, which is a different process. And so that's the next process. It's only in these last days it's also been returned to the country. So now from there it goes to a notification to the National Heritage Authority, as all artefact finds are, and then it goes from there. No more from there. And so it'll all happen very quickly. It's such a large find that's huge, cultural significance, still relevant to us today. That won't be the standard process. This one, and it'll move very quickly. And but the effect, what does it do for us all? What does it mean for Australia? What does it mean for the world?
Yes, no, indeed. I mean, look, as you said, it's the largest living, glyph, which is quite an achievement, my dear. Up on screen right now, we have a picture of the people, I guess, that were responsible for actually building it.
Yeah, so you see the date, 1863.
Yes.
So this is just 23 years after those seeds were planted. And looking at the men there and the ladies, you can see their age. That it's more than fair to say this is the people that planted it. This is them. So this is that tribe. Just 23 years later, and the 2 survivors. And it's a good example of this tribe, by the way. The house behind them, they were great builders. So they had a home here where everything was destroyed. So we don't appreciate that today. But these guys actually built the houses. Well, and the clothes were where here on the Gold Coast or something, where you wore clothes or you didn't. But it's a bit chilly down there. And so these tribes were heavily clothed. And that's what we see here, in the reflection. The older chap is standing to the right there.
Yeah.
When I seen it, horror went through my mind. Bless the good man. But the blanket he's wearing there, they carry a terrible story in the way that blankets were given out right across the colonies. That you could, there was programs where you could go in there and you signed your name to a thing and received your blanket.
Yes.
And but it was found that the blankets were tainted, of course, with smallpox, and that was how a great deal of the smallpox spread. It wasn't that they incidentally just ran into a sufferer; actually came in on the blankets, And around this time, so again, 1863, this is still happening. Another horror to all this too, is once again 1836 first white fella showing up, 1840 disease killed 90% or more, and yet the massacres we hear of, of the shootings and poisoning, they hadn't actually even started yet. So this is before that.
Well, let's just echo that. That's 90%, Colin, right? 90% of their tribe.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was and still continuing. So how many really survived? That was just the numbers counted in that census. So what happened next, of course, was the massacres took on. In one shooting alone, there was 40 of this tribe killed, men, women, and children. So that's out of that 200 that we'd read about, only like the year before. Now there's another 40 on, and there was a number of those massacres. Coming after that, it was even worse. Poor brothers, where the men were rounded up and taken away and used as forced labour in industries and things as far away as now, the plantations opening up in Queensland and so on, and no idea where they were, and just taken away, and the women and children forced into missions and so on, and so the devastation on these people was total. Absolutely total. And of course, it caused the teaching to be stopped. And why it was, the turtle was forgotten, and it was forgotten in the way that it wasn't deliberate as such. But it's awful hard to teach something while they're shooting at you, and children and the wife are dead around your feet.
Yeah.
So the teaching of knowledge and passing on the stories was interrupted, we call it. But a thing happens in this land, that's unique for the land. When a man dies, his traditional language isn't ever lost. It actually goes there into the ground. It's part of his ground. So once again, things are never lost. There's always a chance to get it back. And this is what happened there, of course, was in the slaughter and the dispersions that went on. The stories were interrupted, and but all that while the turtle was still there, hidden under the water, awaiting one day when man could fly again. Of course, we would see it from above in the sky, and so like they say with language, language is lost that goes into the ground. It's the same with the stories, but they are still there, which helps us greatly today, because of course that's a very big part of my work. What I do as an uncle out from the Sovereign United Nations is my responsibility is to go in there and find what was once interrupted and bring it back and reconnect into the country.
Well, Colin, I mean, it's really very important and noble work that you're doing, indeed. And I mean, the relationship that you have with the Indigenous people of Australia is incredibly unique, as far as I can see it. Like, you have developed incredible amounts of trust. And just like we met accidentally on purpose, some of the relationships that you've developed have also been accidentally on purpose, that have become really important relationships for you as well, which is just incredible.
Synchronicity. Yeah, synchronicity. It's like a spinning vortex, it continues all the time that way. And it is a wonderful relationship I enjoy. And can we be so bold as to say, for my wife's art, because keep in mind, I'm an uncle today, serving on country that really was born in Liverpool, England, and it was my ancestors, loaded the Endeavour. The cuckoo ship, we used to call it apparently back then, it was passed down through our mob, and in the way that, that was Lieutenant Cook, of course, but Cuckoo went this way, that on board, that particular expedition was a scientific expedition. So unlike most ships, I think there were 30 scientists. We only ever hear of Joseph Banks, the botanist, but it wasn't actually one. There was astronomers and all sorts of scientists on board. But they were made up of the gentry of the day. And the gentry of the day dressed differently as to what my relatives did, on working on the docks of the Mersey, And they referred to the Endeavour as the cuckoo ship. It's a cook ship by all means, but they're all cuckoo, lunatics. These gentry type wearing wigs and fancy clothes. And so it's quite remarkable, yeah, that my white art coming from that foundation, that today, enjoys, that wonderful responsibility that I own up to here, in the land, and accepted by my brothers and sisters on country. But it doesn't come from saying nice fancy words. I can tell you, where it comes from. It's it's near our traditional, especially elders. They're so stern and firm. They need see what it is that you do. It's not what you say.
No, it's your actions, darling. It's absolutely your actions
that
are.
Yeah, so yeah. So with great hard work and dedication, I earned, my position through that, and continue to, and so I do that, certainly, good work if you can get it. But of course,
indeed, Colin. Well, look, I'll tell you what, Colin. I know that we have another discovery to discuss, but I'll tell you what we might do is we might call it a day on this one, because we're not seeing you, which is a big tragedy.
I see that.
So what we might do is try again another day and see if we can get all of our technology working, because there's a hell of a story in the next one as well. But we really scheduled to talk about this one, and I can't believe you've made another whole discovery just moments after you've made this discovery.
And there'll be another one next week, I can assure you. The speed of learning here just never ends. It's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, it's accelerating.
And, it never ends. Accelerating, yeah. And but I got used to it over the years, and became conditioned to it, and remain balanced at all times throughout that. Even though we're moving fast consistently. And so we're faced with a great many problems here in Australia that need solutions. Not only Australia, by the way, India too, of course, my beloved friends there, and Egypt, but we're faced with a great many problems in the way of these lost or interrupted knowledges.
Yes.
So problem solutions is what we do, and that's what we do at the Mirrabooka. Is to find solutions. So there are so many problems existing that I'll be busy finding solutions for a long time to come. So there'll always something brand new, and all the time. So it does seem like it's moving fast this week, doesn't it?
It really does. It's like I can't keep up with you, Colin. I can't keep up with you, darling.
Yeah, it's like that all the time here. So even I struggle with it,
Yeah.
And I'll be reminded on occasion, what about that discovery, mate? And I go, oh, I forgot all about it. They're just saying all the time. And which is a wonderful thing. And I like to say it's because of that thing, of honouring the journey. If one honours the journey, the land will open up before you,
Yes.
And you're allowed to see then those things that you get to see because you listen. Your reward there for listening.
Yes.
But it's funny, I'm probably the world's most prolific discoverer. But I really do come at it from carrying very strong traditional values and symbols, values and concepts, out from myself. And so the direction of the research, it comes at it from wholly, a sovereign initiative.
Yes.
And quite unusual.
But I mean, look, in addition to the work, you've done so much to help these communities. Like I know that you've, helped people that have been stranded and people that have had, when the fires and the floods, you've been there for the people and helping them get water and petrol and all kinds of things. So it's, you've been really, really wonderful for the, helping the Indigenous, even when there was all this COVID drama going on and lots of misinformation, you were helping straighten all that out as well.
I was, it took a strong voice, and but I was only, by the way, imitating my elders there too, proper real elders, but I say proper because, there's, not everybody's an elder, you just inherit that by age, but they too now copy my voice in the way of reason through all those things, and it takes that. We need leaders and examples, so on. So I can be loud sometimes in the community as well, and which is a precarious place to work from. Once again, my white ass, and but not.
Yep.
I carry enough credibility. I hope that I survive it. And
Indeed, darling.
so far,
Indeed.
so good, you know. Yeah, and the energy, to keep it going. And,
Well, I'm sure you will, my love. And we'll do it again. As I said, I apologize to everybody watching. We've had a lot of technical problems. And the reason we can't see Colin is we couldn't get his audio. So we have his audio going through Facebook, and the whole thing's just a bit of a drama. But at least you've been able to see this remarkable discovery. And what you're watching now is the video that Colin's put together. So we'll put a link of this in the description so that you can watch this from scratch. But Colin and team, I have to, give the ladies some credit where the credit is due. What an amazing discovery, Colin. And we'll come back and we'll look at the second one possibly next week, and we'll see if we can get it all working so we can see your gorgeous face.
yeah, okay. I had a shave too, especially in everything.
Me too. All right, hold on. I'm going to turn off this stop sharing. And let's see if I can put my camera back on. All right. So thank you for joining us, Colin. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who come and listen to this discovery. And we will, as I mentioned, have some more for you next week. So we'll do a little bit more, due diligence, Colin. We'll get you on camera this time. But thank you so much for your time, darling. And thank you for all that were listening. You know what I might just do, Colin, is just see if there are any questions or comments before we go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put on my glasses. So excuse me, guys, for not looking at you on camera. But I will see if I can find if there's any comments or questions. Got too many videos up here. Give me 1 second, Colin. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right. It's never easy, is it, darling?
I can imagine how I go.
Okay,
I'm very old-fashioned. You see me struggle with technology, in the way that I'm very old-fashioned.
Yes.
But,
look, it's hard. I mean, look, there's so much. It's changing so quickly, and so much of it is just so new. Here we go. Now let's see what I can do about finding this. All right.
Yeah, I think I'm constantly stuck in 3000 BC. That's old-fashioned.
Here we go.
I spend so much time there.
All right. Now let's see. Okay. Viewer activity. All right. Here we go. Now, so there's more comments than questions. Let's see. What do those names mean? Oh, somebody was asking, Colin, the names of the statues that we've found previously, the ones that have been already heritage. Do you know what those names mean?
Good point. They relate back to individual stories, passed down stories, like traditional stories. So they're not just that much as they are a title for that particular story, and so that's another story. It's funny how names here, and same for the ancient world everywhere. Really, it's just much the same thing. Names weren't so much like a name as they were a description of what it was they were talking about. So these titles applied to those symbols, a description of what they're talking about, and which is they hold each of the stories where they fit into law, and so that's what they are. So I hope that helps to answer that question.
And the other question is where exactly is this located? This is in Victoria, around the Daylesford area. Is that correct, darling? In Australia? Well, yes. First of all, it's in Australia.
Yeah, so we're about 180 k's north of Melbourne in that area.
Okay.
Right down Port Ball. Other areas around it would be Shepparton, Ukinda, Bendigo, and those sorts of places. So the back road one would take if you were travelling from New South Wales into South Australia and you went through Victoria, with missing out on Melbourne, you go through these sort of. And so population today, I think several thousand in Bourke, and it's a big town today, to what it was back in
Oh
1947. It
gosh,
was,
it's changed a lot, hasn't it, darling? Yes. I mean, it's
oh,
just, yeah, absolutely blown out in terms of people. Well, those are
yeah,
our questions. So that's not too bad at all, my dear. So I
yeah.
say we'll do this again when everything is sorted out. But it's an amazing
But,
story, Colin, and you did such a great job. I really
mate,
appreciate it.
well, thank you for your help and support.
Of course,
You know,
darling.
getting us over the fence at the end. You know, gathering the information was a wonderful thing, but being able to collate them into some sort of order. Yourself and Mabel, of course, you know, were absolute angels, you know, arriving at the right time to help us, helping that story to get home. You know,
I'm so
importantly, that's
glad,
what was it
darling.
we all took part in. You know, it helped us get back home. You know, and
Well,
what a great
anything
contribution
that we
to
can
start.
do, honestly, we're very blessed to be, involved, darling. So, thank you for the
Wonderful.
opportunity.
Well, my team appreciate you and greatly. You know, if I can speak to my elders, you know, the United States of Nations, we very much appreciate your help. You know,
All right,
thank you
darling.
very much, Sarah.
Well, thank you for your time, darling. We'll try again next time for the new discovery. And you just keep
Mm,
going. We might do one a week if you keep going at this rate, Colin.
there's always a new one. Always a brand new one. You know, so we got the lands of the Cabby Cabby, of course, coming up in this next focus. Our team turns our attention for those, where we're dedicated to bring to light some important things for those. And then we move off to the durable in the far north, and there's problems up there too. And no doubt we'll find a solution there as well. So yeah, always something brand new from here. And
Fantastic, darling.
don't start me on Egypt, of course. You know, there's more there, and of course
Yes.
on India too. Just on a quick note, we made some wonderful breakthroughs for India, greatly for the Kalish people, you know, who struggle for their credibility as a minority today, you know, oppressed minority, but famous for the famous Kalish temple in the Ellora Cave.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's the one
wow.
called One Big
Wow.
Rock.
Yeah.
So I dedicate myself for the Kalish as much as I do for Australian Aboriginal and for Egyptian and for Tamil Indian and so on, you know, in that way that I work greatly for sovereign people. So anyway, we've been able to make some massive breakthroughs there in the Kali temple. And in a way that we found indicators that linked it to, it was thought to be built around 700 BC. That's BC, AD, we believe, yeah, which is quite recent, 1400 plus years ago. And so we found very strong indicators that take that back another 4,000 years. And so it seems that,
Wow.
and would you believe, linking it to, in size and measure, to the Sphinx on the Giza Plateau there in Egypt. Yeah,
Wow.
the two are greatly connected. Yeah, one versus the other. You know, made at the same time for the same purpose to connect to each other. And so wonderful news arriving there, you know, in my work in India. So I leave for India in November and
Wow.
I'm invited there by the India Survey Department to observe from their digs there. And of course by a number of faiths there, the Jain people and so on, you know, and greatly the Tamil, you know, to stand strong for them and bring out more of their interrupted history, because they too, you know, received a European version of their own history.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's 2022 today, and all these sovereign nations want their story back. You know? And
It's
so
time.
I tend to be, you know, popular for that. So yeah, we leave for India in November. You know, very exciting, and there we'll deliver a letter for his great holiness himself. That will be travelled back from there to him, and from traditional Australia in the form of a letter. You know, so one sovereign nation replying to another, and I'll deliver the letter for them.
So,
And
Colin, how do people find out about all this stuff? Is it just your Facebook page, or do you have a website, or how can people connect with you?
well, yeah, I never did have a website. I use my YouTube site now, of course, and I always use the Facebook account for the sake of it's a great way to communicate, you know, or was, you know, it's dropped off lately.
Yes.
But it's always a great. But would you believe now my you know, popularity, if you like, you know, for one just a better word, you know, greatly came from just upon country.
Yes.
And from helping one and now helping another. So in Egypt, for example, you know, how I became accepted there, and today, of course, I translate for staff of the Department of Antiquities in field and so on. But how that came about, was that I work for free.
Yes.
I make enough money on my own hands. I'm a tradesman and a good builder, and so I work only for free. So there, working only for free in an area where funds are something everybody's got, and especially getting an easy opinion. You can't go to the Department of Antiquities to ask what's this I just found, And so I supplied that service for many years now in the way that I translate for all, no questions asked, and complete secrecy, I suppose, any one way to put it. And but why I do it is that again, where else can they go? And but at the end of the day, somebody has to catalogue this stuff.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff would just disappear forever. We wouldn't know where it was. And the conditions of dealing with me are that I at least get to catalogue it. But so what I do is to just answer their questions. But anyway, working for free that way, worked greatly for me. So when the time came that I was introduced to the Supreme Council, so that's a scary word, isn't it? Supreme Council. And
It is indeed.
and if you ever seen them, they're scary to look at too, because they're not dressed in collar and tie like the Department of Antiquities. They're in full, Gypsum garb, tribal people, with a huge responsibility. They're guarding their own history. And but when it came time, the scene was it was a internet hookup like this today, and I'm looking down at the screen at a group of gentlemen, around 12 of them at the table, and the fellow at the head of the table, not realising I speak a bit of Arabic, and he said, look, I'm not talking to this fellow, and he's sitting there with his arms across and his legs are tight, he's shut down, and I thought, oh God, anyway, but then he says, unless he owns 12 PhDs, well, of course, everybody knows, I know that you finished high school, so it's not looking good for Cole. And, but adding in next, he finishes with, it better be that, or he'd better be coming from the highest sovereign body on the planet. And, of course, I did. And so as I introduced myself, and I'm coming there in good faith now, I'm a person who's been helping everybody for nothing, and I introduced myself as greeting, flashing gentleman. I'm Carr, because that's my name on country, and I'm talking to you today out from the oldest, still living, most consistent society on earth. My elders, the United Soviet Fathers of Australia. Instantly, the fellow at the table just relaxed. His legs were no longer crossed, and his arms, and he sat back and he listened to everything I had to say. And so it's funny. What I did was I walked in the back door. 12 PhDs would never got me through that front door. Yeah. And but I walked through the open back door, and in that thing of just helping everybody, I became a piece of furniture. And then it's known today. Well, who else you ask? You have Cole. And so the phone here, of course, and the internet goes all day, and it's constant, translating back to the field.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it? And all that first came from my being taught by those here, my elders, to read Kabar, which is again the oldest writing on the planet,
Yeah.
And so taught by the traditional artists, lawgivers, and holders of knowledge, chief custodians, and so on. I was able to grasp that, and really that was my beginnings, So that gives you my place. What I do, my real place is I'm a specialist in what's called paleographics. And people often call me an Egyptologist. Well, we all are. We study Egypt. Egypt is a country, and ology is a study. And but they call me all sorts of things. But why? Not always a good thing. But the right description is I'm a specialist paleographist. Taught by the oldest consistent society on earth, and which is a great advantage. I can walk into a cave and read what's on the wall as easy as most people can read their morning newspaper. And if you're in search of a lost ancient society where nobody knows where they went, and so forth, I'm the bloke to ask for that, because they're the ones that taught me. And are you still there?
Yes, I am, darling.
Yeah. The screen went blank again. So that's just a little bit about where I come from now, in that sense of how I managed to achieve to climb that ladder at the same time without going through the front door, And so it says a lot for helping others, by the way. A lot of people remember that, that opened so many doors for me that were absolutely impossible. Would never have happened. And
It's just amazing, sweetie. You know, it's, I mean, look, it's, you know, it's being in service, right? You're being in service, and
yeah,
you know, you're putting yourself in the right place at the right time, which is just fantastic. I was just doing a screen
yeah,
grab of you so that people could see what you actually look like.
all right.
So while you're
Look
talking,
for
I should
that.
have thought of that a bit earlier. But anyway, look, as I said,
Oh, okay.
darling, we might just end it up now. But
Hey,
thank you so much for your time, Colin. It was
for
really, really
the
interesting.
opportunity. Yeah, thanks for anybody who stuck around to listen. I really appreciate you. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to discuss the topic and a little bit about myself.
Yes. Well, we'll do it
Um,
again, Dylan. As I said, we'll do it again and we'll get it working properly. So
Lovely. See you
bye,
there.
darling. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. See ya.